have to wait another year for the chance for the Warriors to finally beat the Pacers here at Chase Center. They're now 6-0 here in San Francisco. Handshakes and hugs as usual on the floor below us. Only a couple of teams the Warriors don't do a lot of talking to after games. Tonight, Golden State making 12 threes. That means $6,000 will be donated to benefit local organizations, underserved youth, as part of the Hoops for Kids program presented by Salesforce.
Well, I'm glad that someone benefited from that game tonight. You heard Tim Roy on the final call of the Warriors' loss tonight to the Indiana Pacers, 111-105. Yeah, $6,000. That's certainly something that we can smile about. But unfortunately, the crunch time issues persist for the Warriors in a loss that's their, 10th of their last 13 games. The Warriors with a prime opportunity to break their back-to-back winless streak, and they cannot do it. It has officially now been over a month since the Golden State Warriors have won back-to-back games. And we're going to break it all down here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. My name is Evan Giddings, live here at Chase Center. And to me, this is a game that is kind of emblematic of where the Warriors are at. They feel like a roster that right now is a little bit stuck. I mean, I think that this is a team that showed kind of they're stuck between where their aging superstars are at their careers and the inconsistency that they face and the inconsistency of some of their younger players. And tonight, I think you saw kind of the opposites ring true, which was the young players played closer to being the superstars, and the superstars played closer to being the young players. Steph Curry was not very good in this basketball game tonight, specifically in the fourth quarter. Someone like Jonathan Kuminga was a leader off the bench for Golden State. And I think that there's just a lot of questions that this team has, that this roster has, and quite frankly, that the season has. I mean, it's not by any means over with, but this is a loss that stings tonight. And the Warriors fall to 15-13 now on the year, 7-6 here at Chase Center, by the way. But again, they have lost 10 of their last 13 games. And even coming off I thought was a nice win in Minnesota against a Timberwolves team that is still having some issues of their own. You know, that's a good defensive team. The Warriors scored 111 points. And I felt like tonight, and I was dead wrong. I felt like the Warriors would be able to take advantage offensively of a Pacers team that, though they've been playing better defense as of late, and they've now won 5 games in a row to move to 500. This is a Pacers group that entered, I believe, 23rd in the league in defense, and the Warriors could only muster 20 points in the fourth quarter. Sure, they held a good Pacers offense to 22 points in the fourth quarter, but the Warriors were just unable to make the plays when they had to. A couple, I should say, big missed free throws down the stretch, I think, hurt them. Early turnovers, maybe set the tone a little bit, but overall, this is a Warriors team that looked pretty evenly matched with a Pacers group. And the difference to me was, especially down the stretch, is the Warriors still don't really know what they want to do in crunch time. I thought they put together some nice stretches and some nice sets. They put Curry on the ball, or off the ball, I should say, and put him in pick and roll. That produced a couple of nice dump-offs, whether it's from Wiggins, opening up a shot for Curry. But I mean, we just got to put the rat on the table, brought to you by Hetco Pest Control. If Curry shoots 2 of 13 and shoots 1 of 6 in the fourth quarter, it's going to be very difficult for the Warriors to win any basketball games. And that's kind of, I think, where we have to start tonight at 888-957-9570. This is the second of third night in terms of games where Curry has not been very good. And tonight, look, the Warriors didn't get blown out by 50 like they did against Memphis, but Curry had every opportunity to kind of redeem himself in a first half in which he was virtually non-existent. I think we got to be honest with ourselves. Steph Curry did not make a field goal in the first half. Now, he only took 4 of them, but there just are not many games, Thursday night was one of them, in which Curry has not made a field goal. There are not many halves across his career. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'd be willing to bet, because of how great he's been and how great he can still be, that Curry has not had many halves in his career in which he did not score a field goal. And the Warriors lost by 6 in a game that was gettable against a team that was beatable. Indiana is not a bad team. They're playing good basketball, but the Warriors also, I don't believe, are a bad team. They are playing bad basketball right now. When you're 3-10 across 13 games, again, it has been a singular month in which the Warriors have not won back-to-back games. The Warriors started this season 12-3. They are 2 losses away, and I hope they can turn the corner on Christmas against a Lakers team that's reeling as well. But you look after that, still some tough opponents ahead, tail end of December, early January. The Warriors are 2 losses away from essentially producing the inverse of where they started. They were 12-3 to begin the season. They are now 3 of 10 since that point. I mean, the Golden State Warriors have basically played the opposite level of basketball that they displayed for the first month of the year, first month plus, and it's come during a month in which they've played a lot of good teams. I mentioned it on Warriors Live. The Indiana Pacers are the first team in the last 11 opponents that the Warriors have played that is under 500, and the Warriors have now got them back to 500 with the 6-point loss. But this is a game that absolutely hurts because of how interesting both the matchup was, but how interesting I think Saturday was, and how much of an opportunity it was for the Warriors to get a needed win amidst a tough stretch. I'm not saying the Warriors weren't going to lose games, to maybe the Minnesotas or to the OKCs or the Phoenix. They're playing a lot of good teams. They got Cleveland coming up not too far from now. So they're going to lose some of these games. But how do you kind of, again, just find ways to win the games that are there to be won? And this was a game that was absolutely winnable for the Golden State Warriors. And that's why this loss stings so much. I'm curious if people feel the same way, because I think it's for a multitude of reasons. But again, the number is 888-957-9570. Evan Giddings with you. That's also the number for the Comcast Business Text line. I want to immediately go to callers if we can, because I want to get people in here. I'm live at Chase Center after the Warriors lost to the Pacers 111-105. Let's start with Hassan, I believe, in Texas, wants to talk about the game tonight. Hassan, what's going on? Cam, do we have him? Yay or nay? All right. Can we go to Bleacher Dave in Oakland, Cam? Is he still there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, Bleacher Dave. What's up?
Man, look, I got to come in here and cook because I'm furious. I need something to soothe myself because I won't be able to sleep. Because I'm not going to be mad about the tickets, but $50 for parking and $25 for a pedicab.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. That's tough.
Man, look, you're under, and so I just got home from the game. I missed any of what you said, so I don't want to be redundant, but here it is.
Yeah.
Under 500, you have got to win this game at home when you're in this kind of stretch. You can be playing, you have got to win this game if you're this kind of team. And so there's a whole, I'm listening to people get all kind of arcane stuff. There's 2 simple, basic things that, in my opinion, drive this loss, and it's not complicated. You go, 13-0 in points off turnovers. So they didn't turn the ball over a lot, but there's a bunch of turnovers early. But you got to shoot more than 75% from the free throw line. If you make just 2 more out of them 6 free throws they missed, we win this game. On a night when Curry shoots terrible, on a night, though, where his gravity, there was one point, 8:40 left in the second quarter. Curry had 1 official shot statistically up to that point in the game, and the Warriors lead by 9. Why? Gravity. He's get the hook pass. He's throwing it into TJD. We're getting buckets. We got the lead from behind the first. We're winning with Curry not shooting the ball. Somehow, some way, he started shooting. He started missing, not quite as good. So, I don't think you can keep saying, okay, Curry, don't shoot. But on a night when he is not shooting well, you got to keep that in mind. And so you can talk. I heard people talk about substitution patterns and all these other things. Draymond, you can't miss 2 free throws down the stretch. Wiggs, you can't miss 2 free throws earlier. If we catch 2 of those, we win. And I'm not all pissed off and have to cook red beans at midnight because I'm stressed out, right? So anyway, I'm looking forward to getting out there. First game of the season, been moving around. Looking forward to getting out there on Christmas Day. If they lose on Christmas Day to the Lakers, look, we can't have that at home because we're going to hear this all kind of nationally. They coming for us already. At the end of the day, I want to ask you this. What do we need to do? Because I don't think this team is right Not mentally. I don't think they're right where they. I think they can get better, but I don't think we can rely on what we got. Here's my answer.
Gotcha.
Here's my.
Oh, sorry about that, Bleacher Dave.
Kuminga is never a player that we wish for him to be when he came out. Tremendously athletic. I just don't think he's going to get to that level we need to get him to in time for take advantage of Curry. Trade his ass. Let's win now. Good night.
Whew. A lot to unpack there, Bleacher Dave. Appreciate the call. Again, 888-957-957 is the number. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors wrap-up after the Warriors fall to the Pacers, 111-105. I think a lot of good stuff there. Number one, you did go to a good game tonight. It just sucks that the Warriors, especially since about a month ago, have not been able to win these kinds of games. To me, what it comes down to, and if you want to simplify it as Curry and Draymond Green shot 3 for 18 in this game, like the fact that you're in the game and arguably your two best players were paltry at best offensively, that might be a good sign. But what the end of the game told me, and I think this has kind of been the case for the majority of their opponents. Like if you look at all of the end of crunch time, clutch time situations, right? Games decided by 5 points in the final 5 minutes. The Golden State Warriors have had close losses to the Brooklyn Nets, which, by the way, Dennis Schroeder was on. My goodness. That was a long time ago, it felt like. Oklahoma City, they lost by 4. Phoenix, they lost by 8. Denver, they blew the game, but they lost by 4. They lost by 1 point to Houston. They lost by 10 points, but the game was in the balance against Dallas when at 143-133. To me, what it comes down to is simply this. Other teams know exactly what they're doing and where they're going with the ball under 5 minutes to play in a 5-point game. The Warriors do not. And they've been searching for answers. And that's one of the major reasons, in my opinion, that they're 3-10 in their last 13. And a big reason is you can't just give it to Steph anymore and he's going to bail you out. He might be able to finish and close games on some nights. We saw it on Saturday. He had 31-10. He was spectacular. 2 days later, he was 2 for 13 and 1 for 6 in the fourth quarter. I would argue that the Warriors, and again, that's why they're kind of stuck, because you obviously cannot go away from Steph. But what I think they're going to eventually have to come to a head to is when he doesn't have it going, you need to use, to your point, Bleacher Dave, Steph's gravity as opposed to just his ability to shoot the ball and put the ball in the hole. I thought the Warriors down the stretch of this game, they looked very good when they used Curry as the screen man. Wiggins was on the ball and was initiating. 104-101. Wiggins drives to the lane, dumps it off to a cutting Kuminga for a dunk. Next possession down. Wiggins dives to the rim, delivers it to Draymond, who gets fouled. Now, he went 1 of 2 at the free throw line, which sucks, but those are 2 quality possessions. And then you see Curry get on the ball, attack the paint, quick dump off to Schroeder to make it a 2-point game. But then Curry takes a step back. And I don't know if he was going for 3, but they were down 2 with 42 seconds left, misses for the tie. Curry also missed a response 3 for the tie earlier with 2 minutes and 50 seconds left at 102.99. If Curry's not going to make those shots, then either you have to live with losses like these or you have to figure out if there's a better option offensively. I think that's one of the reasons why they went out and got Schroeder. And I'll get to him in a minute because I was not that impressed with Dennis Schroeder tonight, did not play very well. But again, what I'm talking about is whether you think that Curry should have the ball, be on the ball, off the ball, the Warriors don't always look like they know what they're doing on offense, and it's not predetermined almost, and so there's going to be inconsistency. Meanwhile, you look at what Indiana did. It was very simple. Either it was Halliburton and Siakam, pick and roll, or it was Nembhard and Turner, pick and roll or pick and pop. And yes, there was a late call down the stretch. Siakam misses the dagger 3 with 28 seconds left. Long rebound. Ball gets tipped out. Originally was off of Indiana. Gets reviewed. I thought they made the right call. I thought J.K. had tipped it in real time, but goes out of bounds. Obviously, that's a play that swings it because the Indiana Pacers get an extra possession. Miles Turner hits a dagger 3 on a late feed from Halliburton. But again, they know what they're doing offensively. And this is not a Pacers team that really has one go-to option. That's another thing that was a bit enlightening for me, is just because you have a lot of different players and a lot of different options doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing. Like, again, it was Halliburton and Siakam, or it was Nembhard and Turner. Whether they were taking turns or not, they knew what they were going to do in those crunch time situations. Up until 2 days ago, when they beat the Kings, the Pacers did not have a 20-point per game score on their roster. They were one of 4 teams in basketball that does not have a 20-point per game score. And Siakam was the guy tonight. Obviously, he chipped in, but they have all 5 of their starters in double digits. The Warriors, meanwhile, I looked up at the beginning of the third quarter. The only starter in double digits for the Warriors was Trayce Jackson-Davis. Andrew Wiggins, I thought, played well in the second half. He obviously helped them out. He scored the basketball because Curry didn't have it going. Draymond's never a guy that's going to light up the scoreboard. But Dennis Schroeder was terrible offensively tonight. He was a minus 22, and he played almost the most minutes of anybody on the floor tonight. He also had 5 fouls. Like, the Warriors did not have a dependable score in their starting lineup, including Steph Curry. Wiggins was probably the closest one to it. Meanwhile, the Indiana Pacers knew exactly what they were going to do down the stretch of that game. And so that, to me, is the difference right now in wins and losses for the Warriors. And so, in a long-winded answer, Bleacher Dave, what they have to do or where they can go, the options they have, to me, you have to ride this out. You have to figure out if you can self-correct, because I don't think a trade is imminent for the Warriors. And I'll get to that in just a moment, because I have some thoughts on what the bigger picture takeaway is from this game for me. But I do want to get other people involved at 888-957-9570. I know we were going to go to Hassan earlier in Texas. Cam, if we have him, could we please go to down south to the Lone Star State? Hassan, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. I'm back. My mic was on mute, actually. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
I mean, every game that we played doesn't have to be a close game, man. I think this game, we were actually pulling away in the second quarter. Like, I think the Warriors went up by like 10 points.
Yep.
And then what happened next? All of a sudden, we go back to small fifth grader lineup ball. I mean, we have, I think he left, I don't know if it was Draymond or something like that, but it was like one power forward in there and a bunch of guards. And that's when, everything shifted. I mean, my question is, why can't we just have a solid lineup the same way that we started? We started with 2 legit, big men. I think it was Draymond Green and Trayce Jackson. Now, I do understand that Draymond Green got injured, like mid-game or whatever, but why can't you play slow-mo? Like, why can't you play Kyle Anderson? Why can't you play Looney and another and Trayce Davis at the same time? Why can't you continue to play 2 legit big men to have a decent front court? And then if you want to play 3 guards, that's fine. But why can't we just have always 2 big men in there? Why do we always revert to small ball when we get a little lead? Lead. I just don't understand that. Like, I think the issue with this team is the lineup. The last game against the Wolves, we won that game, because Draymond wasn't playing. So Steve Kerr was forced to start Trayce Davis and Kyle. And what happened? We really never, went under on that. In that game, we really never went down by 10 points or a large, So why can't they understand that the issue with the Warriors has always been the lack of rim protection? And whenever we do kind of cover that up, now Steph is allowed to at least play, because when we continue to give teams 2-3 chances, that's a team spirit killer, because we have to double the effort on defense and then trying to make up for that on offense. And that's when turnovers start. And we just, it's just a snowball effect to going down by 10 points every single time.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's fair. A lot of good comments there, Hassan, and thank you for sticking with us. If you're down in Texas, it's got to be like 12:30, so I appreciate you chiming in. So here's what I have to say about that is the reason why Trayce Jackson-Davis played probably a lot more and you didn't see a ton of Looney Number one, he was really good. Like Trace Jackson-Davis, I thought was probably the Warriors. Well, like I said, he was the only guy who was in double digits at the beginning of the third quarter. Meanwhile, Indiana had 4 of their 5 starters in double digits. And the reason for that is what Indiana tries to do generally, like they will give you whatever you want in the paint as long as you're not hitting threes. If you go look at the amount of threes that they give up, the amount of attempts is relatively low. I think they're top 10. But they're susceptible. And you saw it in the first quarter. Trace Jackson-Davis diving to the rim. Kuminga getting to the rim. I think the Warriors had 16 points in the paint in the first quarter, and that's a big reason why they were only down by a point because Indiana was hitting a lot early. But Warriors went 9 of 13 on twos in the first quarter. 7 of those makes were in the paint. I thought that they did a really good job of taking what the Pacers gave them, which was a lot of twos, and quite frankly, easy twos. Now, that helped them go up, I believe, in that first half, their largest lead was 46-37, and that 9. That was their largest lead of the game. What I saw down the stretch of that, and you're right, they did go small, but to me, what Kerr was testing, and this is a product of having a new player and Schroeder adjusting to a new system, or I should say like Draymond Green talked about when he got traded, the system adjusting to him. What Kerr did was I think he tested out over the last 3 minutes and 12 seconds of the first half what ideally your finishing lineup is going to look like, and your best two-way finishing lineup, and that is Curry alongside Schroeder with Wiggins and Kuminga on the wings and Draymond as your small ball 5. And the reason why I think that that's the most optimal two-way lineup that Kerr would like to use is because when the Warriors were winning 12 of 15 games and they were at their best 5-man lineup was those 4 guys that I mentioned, and the 5th one was DeAnthony Melton. And what was the whole reason you traded for Schroeder in the first place was to basically get a DeAnthony Melton substitute, somebody who could defend, but somebody who's efficient enough offensively. He probably gives you a little more offense than Melton, but he gives you less defense than Melton. So to me, that's what they tried to do down the stretch of that first quarter. That got outscored, I think, 12-3. So that 5-man lineup that is ideally your closing lineup on most nights got outscored by 9, and they go down into the break by 8. I thought Kuminga played really well in the second quarter overall, but down the stretch, and this is, to me, where Schroeder, when they made the trade, I thought it was low risk, high reward. But what you're beginning to see, I think, and look, it's still early. It's been 3 games. He's had 1 good game. He's had 2 bad games. The Warriors all the same. Schroeder was a minus 20 in the first half, and the issue that I have with Schroeder in his game, and I thought might be problematic when he came over, was the fact that the ball stops when it's in his hands. And I think when the Warriors are at their best offensively, the ball is moving and they're getting up and down. Schroeder needs the game to be a bit slower. He can play in transition like any guy, but when he is at his best offensively, and you saw it when Brooklyn took it to the Warriors, and Schroeder specifically had 19 fourth-quarter points literally a month ago, almost to the day, against Golden State. It was slow pick and roll. But he doesn't have to worry when he's on Brooklyn about feeding a Curry or getting mouths fed like Kuminga or Wiggins. And the play style that the Warriors, and this is where the adjustment period is going to come, in my opinion, he doesn't fit what they do. And so there's going to be a lot of stagnant possessions early. And that's why, again, I think the Warriors kind of have to play through it in order to figure out if it's going to work or if they need to maybe package him and get someone else or maybe just go away from it as a whole. So I think down the stretch of that first half, you saw Kerr experiment a little bit. And that's in the experimentation that Dennis Schroeder is inevitably going to put you in. And then in the second half, I think that Draymond, yes, you're right. They don't put 2 traditional bigs on the floor, but I think that's also a product of Indiana because, remember, Draymond wasn't the only one that came out and got hurt. Miles Turner didn't play, I think, for the majority of that third quarter. He went down, my notes here say, he left to go to the locker room at 6:40. So, hey, what's going on? Just a little crowd here at Chase Center. But Miles Turner goes to the locker room at the 6:40 mark. So he came out before that. Draymond Green was already out for the Warriors, but when that happened, I think they pretty much put Siakam at the 5, and they basically played 5-out basketball. So it's hard to play with two bigs when you're up against an opponent that's long, that's fast, that's athletic, and isn't playing with a true center. So I just think they had to go, matchup for matchup there. Draymond, I don't think was great in this game, but I don't think it's a coincidence necessarily that when Draymond came out 2 minutes in to the second half, that's when Indiana began to make a push and began to, grab what eventually I think turned into a 12-point lead. Now, the Warriors ended the third quarter on a 7-0 run in the final minute 12. They went up 11-3 over the final 3 minutes of that third quarter. That helped them make it a 4-point game going into the fourth, in which Draymond came back, but also Miles Turner came back. And I thought Miles Turner was great in this game, and it does highlight something that I think a lot of fans have clamored for that I think could obviously help the Warriors, and that's a shooting big. That's a shooting 5. But the unique part about Turner is that he's also not a liability defensively. Like, I personally am not a huge proponent of the Vucevic type of acquisition for the Warriors, because I don't know what he does defensively to you. And the Warriors, as we've seen, have kind of struggled to get stops down the stretch of games. And I don't know how much he helps you there. Like, Turner, in a perfect world would be perfect, but I don't really understand why Indiana would move off of him. And I mentioned on Warriors Live before the game, if anything, I think the Warriors could make a run at Turner in free agency, because he's not allowed to negotiate his contract after renegotiating it about a year and a half ago, according to the CBA. So that might be something that the Warriors look at this offseason, but I don't think they can acquire a player like Turner who can step out, hit a 3, but can also average 2 blocks a game. And also, I mean, he's not a perfect player either. Again, I mentioned the Warriors had 16 points in the paint in the first quarter. Turner was in the game at that point. So it wasn't like he was just knocking everything around like Rudy Gobert, defending the rim like Ben Wallace. He wasn't perfect in this game either, but he definitely added a different dynamic to the Pacers, and he obviously hit the dagger that effectively ended the game. Where I was impressed tonight was with the young guys. It was with the young players, and it was the 2 players specifically, but primarily Jonathan Kuminga. For those who heard, whether it was on social media, maybe they were listening to the press conference or just caught wind of it, Steve Kerr kind of called out Kuminga before the game, and he said specifically what he wants JK to do in situations before the game. He said he talked to Pajemski, talked to him about serving other players, but at the same time, it was the pregame was all about JK, in my opinion. He mentioned how Kuminga's mid-range points per possession are low, how JK is kind of just another guy, and the 16 starting lineups that the Warriors have featured aren't necessarily to take away or to empower anybody, but it's to try and find ways to win. So Kerr said he's trying to manipulate lineups to win games. JK was starting to right the ship, in my opinion, but when the Warriors were losing, Kerr decided to try new things. And Kuminga's shot diet, especially over the last 2 games against Memphis and Minnesota, was something that Kerr was not happy about. And so he let him know that. He did it through talking about the younger players, but you could tell that he was talking to Jonathan Kuminga. And I thought Kuminga responded excellent. And to me, he put to rest the cryptic Instagram post that he posted. I forget if it was Saturday night or early Sunday, but over the weekend, he posted on IG a picture of the back of his jersey and the emojis of the deuces, right? The peace sign. And everyone was like, is he getting traded? Is he mad? What's going on? It was very cryptic. He responded the way a true professional does, and that is put your head down and go to work. And to me, Kerr also gets some credit because what he talked about asking Kuminga to do and talking about coaching Kuminga, he did. Kuminga got to the rim. I don't think he took a 3 in the first half, and he shot it well enough, but he was pounding the rim, and he was driving and kicking. His first 7 points all came in the paint. He had a driving kick 3 in the first half to Buddy Hield. He made smart plays. He had a block from behind. I think he had 8 rebounds in this game. He had a couple of key offensive putbacks down the stretch in which he wrestled his way to the rim, pretty much threw it. I think it was Mathurin who was matched up for most of the game on, threw him to the side, grabbed the rebound, put it back up and in. It was unfortunate that he ended up missing the pair of free throws when they were up 95-93 in the fourth quarter. He went 6 of 9 as a whole at the free throw line, which will actually improve his free throw percentage. But that's probably the only part of his game that I could critique tonight. And he got, maybe lost a little bit defensively once or twice, but that's going to happen. I thought Kuminga responded tonight the way that you want a young up-and-coming professional to respond. And I don't know if that increases his trade value if people are looking to move him. To me, that's the game that you want to see from Kuminga, especially after he gets called out by his coach pregame, basically airing what they've talked about privately, which is what he needs to do in terms of his shot diet, in terms of his shot selection. Kuminga responded exactly the way that you want to see a player to. And he was 9 for 16, had 26 points, which was a game high, and made a case for himself, I don't know, potentially moving back into the starting lineup as the Warriors look for answers, because they lost by 6 tonight. I thought this was a loss that hurts, and it was a game that was absolutely gettable for the Golden State Warriors. They fall 111-105 to the Indiana Pacers. The Warriors are now 15-13 on the season. I know we're going to talk about it a lot tomorrow, and I'll be on the air in for Steiny. And I think that there's a lot to get into from this game still left here on Warriors Wrap-Up. I do want to step aside, come back, listen to Steve Kerr, and then get into kind of the meat and potatoes of tonight. And it's about the best players. It's about Steph. It's about Draymond. And it's about the Warriors season right now, where it stands at 15-13 and where potentially it could go, what potentially they could do. But I think it rests on the shoulders in many ways of their two best players, because I'm not sure help is coming. And 2 of the last 3 games, and really this month of December, have opened my eyes to some of the limitations that we're starting to see from once was their best players, and probably still are their best players, but definitely at an advanced age. So 888-957-9570 is the number. Again, 888-957-9570 is the number. And it's also the number for the Comcast business text line. My name is Evan Giddings. Again, on the other side, we'll listen to Steve Kerr get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation when we return on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game.
for the dunk. Just snapped it off in traffic.
Yeah, the vision. He knew where he wanted to go before the ball ever got to him.
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
Tim Roy and Tom Tolbert on the call after the Warriors fall to the Indiana Pacers 111-105. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors Wrap Up here on 95.7 The Game, live from Chase Center after, quite honestly, a tough one. I don't know if a lot of people, I think, maybe because it's a Monday night. I know it's right before Christmas, and people are gearing up for LeBron and Anthony Davis and, J.J. Redick to come to town on Wednesday. But this is a loss that stings amidst a really tough stretch for Golden State. Not just the fact that they've been losing, but based on the opponents that they've been playing. There's not a lot of these games during this stretch. Again, going back a month, the last time the Warriors won back-to-back games, ironically also the last time they scored 110 points or more in consecutive games, it was November 20th and November 22nd. They played the Hawks, they played the Pelicans. They beat both those teams. Since then, they are 3-10. They have lost 5 in a row. Then they beat Houston. Then they lost to Minnesota. They beat the Wolves on the tail end of that home set. Then they lost 3 in a row to Houston, Dallas, Memphis. They beat Minnesota over the weekend. And tonight, they lose to the Indiana Pacers. This was the first time in 10 games they played a team below 500. And I realize that the Pacers have been playing good basketball. They've now won 5 games in a row. But that's a game you got to get. If you're reeling, if you're toiling, and you are struggling the way that the Warriors have, which is mightily, and you're looking to not be a play-in tournament team, these are the kinds of games that you need to win. And it also begins, 8 of 9 at home for the Warriors. So, maybe somewhat of a favorable stretch. The Warriors are now 7-6 at Chase Center, by the way. But, last week was concerning to me because the Warriors between Houston and Minnesota, they played 4 games across 10 days. They're going to play 4 games in the next 6 days, the next 6 nights. So not just Indiana, LA, the Lakers and the Clippers, and then Phoenix, but that's all relatively condensed. And the thing that I cannot avoid thinking about, and really was just hitting me during this game, is how old the best players on the Warriors look. And it was because of some of the play from Steph Curry tonight. I thought Draymond Green was good, but he was also in and out. He was headed to the locker room between, I think, the 10-minute mark of the third quarter and the beginning of the fourth quarter. Draymond Green, he was questionable coming into today. He had a lower leg injury that he's been hampered by. And that's, yes, something that happens to every NBA player, but it happens to players that are 34 or 35 years of age. And that's what Draymond Green is. Steph Curry's 36 going on 37 as we head into the new year. And those are the Warriors, have been the Warriors' 2 best players. And they looked old tonight. And it's going to be really difficult for them to win games if they continue to either rely on those players as heavily as they did on, a game like tonight. Steph Curry ended up playing 35 minutes. He was a +6, but he had 7 assists in this game. He actually had 3 blocks, which is a season high for him. But 10 points on 13 shots, 2 of 9 from 3, especially when you're asking him to close, you're going to lose that basketball game. And Draymond Green was 1 of 5. He took all of his shots from three-point range. He was 1 of 4 at the free throw line, missed a big one down the stretch there. I know he had 3 steals. I know he had 5 assists. But when your 2 best players whole, Curry obviously more offensively geared, Draymond obviously more defensively geared, but when your 2 best players go 3 for 18 from the floor, you're not going to win many of those games. And that's why the Warriors, to me, lost tonight against a very beatable Indiana Pacers group. It's because their 2 best players didn't play well. I know Kuminga had 26. I know Wiggins had 16. I know that the bench and Buddy Hield shot it pretty well from downtown. Moses Moody was somehow +16 tonight, though he didn't register a statistic outside of 3 points. But when your 2 best players do not play well, you're going to lose games. And so I'm curious, Cam, as we kind of shift gears now to listen to Steve Kerr, what he had to say about this loss, both about what we talked about, the lineups that he chose to employ, some of the starters that did not play very well, the new acquisition in Dennis Schroeder, and also the players that he called out before the game, both Brandon Pajemski and more specifically Kuminga, who responded with 26 points off the bench. That was a game high for the Warriors. So here's the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr.
Are you seeing fatigue at all in maybe his shooting lately?
Well, not last game, so a tough night for him, but it happens. I thought we got good looks for much of the game. I thought our guys played really good basketball for good stretches. It was a slow start with the turnovers, and then we got that settled quickly, and our guys competed and had chances. We just couldn't put the ball in the basket, and sometimes that's what it comes down to.
With the way Kuminga played, do you feel like your message was received a little bit?
I don't like. What are we talking about? Like, there's 82 games. There's all kinds of stuff happens. I coach, and so I say stuff to all the guys. And JK was great tonight. Played a fantastic game. So not about message or anything. It's all part of the season.
Generally seemed to like you liked the offense late in the game. Is that right? You just feel like you missed shots?
I thought we had some good looks. Again, we really took care of the ball after that first quarter. I think we only had maybe 5 turnovers in the last 3 quarters. Got some good looks. We had some possessions that weren't great, but all in all, pretty good looks. Love the way the guys competed and stuck together, and had some really good performances from several people. Like I said, couldn't knock down shots, enough shots to win the game.
It also seemed like they found some defensive energy in that fourth quarter that maybe wasn't always there in the first 3. What do you think of the fourth quarter defense?
It's great. Yeah. Like I said, we competed, and I thought we got, a little down a couple times earlier in the game, hung our heads a little bit, complained to the refs. Like we lost our energy. First quarter, we were throwing the ball ahead, getting it out quick. Second quarter, that kind of came to a stop, and that really hurt us. But I saw that spark in the second half. Guys did a great job getting back in the game. Just couldn't finish it.
Draymond left for pretty much the entirety of the third quarter. I think
he came down to see the training staff.
I think Schroeder was a -22. What have you seen from him in terms of getting to know the offense, the system, working around him and adjusting?
Yeah, he's it's the third game with us, so it's going to take some time. But I love what I see from Dennis. Just in terms of the ball pressure, I thought he did an excellent job defensively. He's a guy who is streaky as a shooter. I've seen him, and I know it's just a matter of time before he starts knocking him down, but there's going to be nights where shots aren't going. But Dennis is a great addition for us, and he's going to help us win a lot of games.
What makes the Pacers so hard to defend? It looks like, obviously Halliburton is doing his thing, but they looked like they were able to get open shots maybe at a pretty high rate at times. 5 out. Modern NBA, 5 shooters makes for a lot of court to cover. So when Siakam and Turner are stretching you out, topping, they're big shooters, you have to honor that, and it opens up the lane.
You heard from Steve Kerr there. It's something that I kind of sensed down the stretch of the fourth quarter, and he's right. The Warriors did generate some good looks, but overall not enough, and especially not enough combined with the lack of stops that they got. I thought Indiana knew exactly what they were doing. Pick and roll, pick and pop with either Halliburton and Siakam or Nembhard and Turner. And I think that's one of the reasons why also Schroeder is a player that the Warriors will end up needing if they're going to find a way out of this funk. You do see the benefit on the Pacers side of having 2 point guards or 2 guys that can really handle the ball. And Nembhard was even breaking Wiggins down off the dribble. Wiggins had a great stop on him late, but Nembhard is someone who can take you off the dribble. Halliburton, of course, had the final kick to Turner, who drilled the dagger three to effectively end the game. You see how much having two guys on the floor that can handle the ball is a benefit to your offense in closing time, because one of them either might not be open, one of them might not have it, one of them might have to make the decision, the other does not have the ability to. And so the Warriors are going to need Schroeder, but tonight he did not play very well. The guy that did play well, quite honestly, was Jonathan Kuminga. And I know that Kerr kind of dodged the question and, basically kind of poo-pooed the fact that he sent him a message. Maybe he didn't see it like that, but it's what it sounded like to me, quite frankly, pregame. And the question from Danny Emmerman of the San Jose Mercury News, I thought was fair. If the message was received, I think it was. And whether he put out a cryptic note on IG or not, Jonathan Kuminga responded the way tonight you want to see from not just any young player, but any player in general. If you get called out by your coach for not playing well or taking shots that you shouldn't and hurting your basketball team, it's not as if you're going to get cut, you're going to get traded, although Kuminga, that's certainly an option. But you want to see what happens after that. And Kuminga brought a game tonight that no one else did. And honestly, I thought he played as close to a complete game as he has all season. His best game was against Houston, and that was without Curry and Draymond. But tonight, he played a damn good basketball game. He was driving, he was kicking, he was getting to the cup, he was setting up others. He also played on-ball defense, I thought, in a pretty fine fashion. But 26, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists, that's a game of a wing that can take over certain situations. And he ended up being a -2 in this game, but I think a big reason for that was, not representative of his game as a whole. I thought he had a great stretch in the second quarter. I think he really helped them get back into the game in the third, and obviously was close to a team that was able to come from behind down the stretch in the fourth quarter. So if Robert is still there in Oakland, Cam, can we please go to Robert, who wants to talk about JK? What's going on, Robert? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up. How are you?
What's up? Hi. Do you think Kuminga step forward will change it will be all the time, or do you think it will take one step forward and 2 steps back like usual?
I got you, Robert. You all right there?
Nah, I just get nervous sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, no worries, man. Well, first of all, I think that's a great question. I appreciate you calling in. Do I think he'll take a step forward or a step and then 2 back? I mean, I hope it's the former, and I get what you're saying, and I appreciate you calling in. To me, I've been a proponent of this guy. I realize that his game is flawed at this point, but I think it's more so due to youth. I think the Warriors need to lean into him, and I didn't like what they did the other night in Kerr, taking him out of the starting lineup after kind of empowering him. I think Jonathan Kuminga is a piece of this team that they need. And I know that they weren't necessarily poor at the beginning of the game, but I thought when the game turned and the Warriors took their largest lead was when Kuminga was in and when he was featured. 26 points is nothing to scoff at. And on a night when Curry doesn't have it going, Schroeder doesn't have it going. Even Wiggins in the first half wasn't that impressive. You're going to need a guy like that to get you baskets. And I thought Kuminga played as controlled and as under control and played with a tempo as well as I've seen him this season. And is he going to be able to do it all the time? No. But I think that's why the Warriors are a little stuck. They're stuck between the inconsistency that their older players are clearly having, which you see by going 3 for 18 between Curry and Draymond, and the inconsistencies that their younger players are having, where Kuminga can have nights like this, but can he have nights like this while Curry also plays well? Can Podziemski, I thought he also played pretty well tonight. 26 minutes, I know he only had 5 points, but 6 rebounds, 2 of them offensive, had a couple of assists and 3 steals, along with a patented charge drawn. Can those young players play well when the OGs play well? That's, to me, the biggest question that the Warriors have to answer. And so far during the stretch, they obviously have not. They are 3-10 in their last 13. And like I mentioned before, they are on the verge of basically wrapping this December into New Year's stretch the same way they began the season. Like, they started 12-3. If they lose 2 more games, they are 3-12 in their last 15. And that's what's been such a coin flip about this year. It's like, who are the Golden State Warriors? The one thing that we have to get to tonight, and I think it was on everybody's mind watching this game, and especially on the heels of Thursday, Steph Curry is beginning to look old. And it pains me to say, as a fan of his, a fan of the Warriors, as a native of the Bay Area, I grew up in the East Bay, Steph Curry is beginning to look his age more often than we've ever seen before. And it doesn't mean that he's done. It doesn't mean that, he's washed or anything. But tonight, the reason why the Warriors didn't win is Curry went 2 for 13. He went 1 of 6 in the fourth quarter. Like, he knows he's got to be better. He knows he can be better. He literally just did it on Saturday. But that's the issue that the Warriors are going to run into more often than not. And it takes us to the inevitable conversation of how much help can the Warriors get Steph? Should they get Steph? And does he need? By the way, you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and H21 San Francisco. Always live in the free Odyssey app, Twitch and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors Live here on 95.7 The Game from Chase Center, 111-105. Warriors lose 3 out of 13 in the loss column. This is... I think a lot of people are of the mindset that you got to do everything for Steph and you got to go all in for Curry. And he doesn't have many great years left. And so that means that you need to mortgage the farm and you got to bring him help. And Schroeder definitely is someone that can help Steph, but I think that was a relatively risk-free move because you weren't going to get anything from Milton anyways. These last 3 games, I mean, really this month of December, Curry's shooting 38% from the floor. He is, 38% from 3. He has not had many months like this across his career. Curry as a whole, let's just go through his month of December because it takes me to a place that I unfortunately am going to have to go to. And we're going to talk about it a lot tomorrow, I'm sure, on 95.7 The Game. I appreciate if anybody sticks with us through December the way that the Warriors have. But Christmas Eve tomorrow from 6 to 6. And then we have our Christmas coverage for the Warriors beginning at 4:30 for the 5:30 tip against the Lakers. I'll have you for pre and post in a couple of days from now. But Steph Curry has played 7 games in the month of December. He's shooting 40% from the floor, 37% from 3. He's a -2 in terms of his plus-minus per game. In 33 minutes, he's averaging 22 points. Those are not Steph Curry numbers. And I know that it's not even midway through the season. I know he's been dealing with knee tendonitis. But these are the kinds of games tonight, combined with what happened on Thursday. He didn't make a field goal. Tonight against Indiana, he didn't make a field goal in the first half. He was 0 for 4 in 17 minutes. These are the kinds of games that make me absolutely not want to go all in for Steph and not mortgage whatever future you have to get this guy. I'm not sure there's enough help that you can get him right now to where fans want him to be, which is hoisting his 5th Larry O'Brien trophy. I don't think the Warriors are a player away. If they can get the best player in the league, sure. Steph Curry right now, the numbers that I just told you in the month of December, those are average numbers. Those are subpar shooting numbers for any player. And Curry is looking like a 36-year-old in the month of December against good basketball teams more often than not. And that doesn't give me hope that he can carry this team the way he used to. I don't think he can. And can he do it on some nights? Yes, he just did it on Saturday against Minnesota. But the fact that there's been 2 games in the last week in which he has looked subpar offensively, he knows he's got to be better. But that does not push me towards cashing in all my chips. In fact, that draws me further away from the blackjack table. Gambling on what's left of a 36-year-old's career, as great as he is, to me that's something that you have to be very careful with what you do for the remainder of this season. I think the Warriors are best served to try and figure this thing out with potentially a diminished version of Curry, with trying to figure out what they have with their younger players, with implementing Dennis Schroeder and figuring out how much he can help Curry. But this game is not one that makes me say, I want another trade for a superstar. It doesn't, because I'm not sure how much further that gets you. I didn't think the Warriors were going to be a title team coming in. I didn't think even they could be a top 4 seed coming into this season. I know the 12-3 start has sort of maybe reconfigured the way that we look at this team, but I think this is a team that's a borderline playing group. I think even with a second superstar, maybe I don't know if it's Jimmy Butler, if it's Brandon Ingram, or whatever name you want to throw. I don't know if there's anybody that's gettable right now to help the Warriors where they are. What they need is for Curry and to some extent Draymond Green to play better. Curry can't shoot 40% from the floor, 37% from three, and average 22 points per game for an entire month and expect the Warriors are going to win 80% of their games. It's not going to happen. They don't have the rest of the pieces on this roster to account for the drop-off that has happened this season, and I don't think they have the trade assets to go out and replace the production that they would lose if they did trade it in order to get Curry the requisite help. If you move and go get a big boy, that's going to hurt the rest of your roster. I thought that the Warriors' problem tonight against Indiana, Curry couldn't get a shot off. I mean, he looked old tonight. And when he looks old, the Warriors are going to probably lose games. They could still win some, obviously. He's going to have big nights, but how they figure out how they're going to attack teams down the stretch if Curry doesn't have it going is also a big question that they have to answer, because tonight Curry did not look like a top 10 player that he's been for the majority of his career. He didn't look like an all-NBA player, again, that he's been for the majority of his career and that he was as recently as last season. And the second half of last year was a bit alarming. Not the second half, but after the All-Star break, Curry had a lot more games like he did tonight than games like he's had over the summer with the Olympics, or games that he had prior to the All-Star break of last season, when I think he was up there in terms of 40-point games at age 35 or above with Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Those games are happening less frequently, and the Warriors are going to have to figure out, in addition to how to, defensively get some stops against teams like Indiana, how they're going to take care of the basketball better at the beginning of games, how they're going to maybe correct their free throw shooting in fourth quarters at big times. They got to figure out how they can overcome games like these, because they're going to happen more than they ever have, and that's a stark reality for the Warriors. I mean, in December, again, the numbers have not been great for Steph. They haven't been great for Draymond, but the Warriors are now 3-6 in the month of December. Pardon me, 3-6. Curry didn't play in one of them, I believe. In fact, I think that was the one that they won. Gosh, I didn't even put that together. The Warriors this season, the Warriors in the month of December in games that Steph has played, if I can do the quick math here, 8, they're 2-6. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. They're 2-6 with Steph in the month of December. The one game that he did not play, they won against Houston, which Houston's not a title contender in my eyes, but they are a good basketball team. I'm not saying the Warriors are better without him by any means. You saw what happened in the first half. He could still use his gravity to create open looks for others, and I think it was one of our callers from Oakland that mentioned it earlier. Curry off the ball is still as lethal as ever because of the threat of him being able to shoot. But when he is taking as many shots as he did, especially in the fourth quarter, and he's not making them, you're going to have to live and die with it. And tonight the Warriors, I thought, died with it. And that's something that they're going to have to figure out. I think it's also a reason why they brought in Dennis Schroeder to take some of the pressure off of Steph's plate in terms of on-ball creation. But the Warriors were successful in the fourth quarter, I thought, when they were using Steph, yes, in the flow of the offense, but a little bit as a decoy when they put him as the screener with Andrew Wiggins, whereas typically you see Draymond or maybe even Kuminga in a wing-to-wing pick and roll. When they use Curry as a screener, then the defense has to move with him, and that opened up a driving lane for Wiggins or for Kuminga, or it opened up lanes for cutters. And that's the kind of creativity that offensively they're going to have to figure out if Curry doesn't have it going like tonight. If he's got it going like he did on Saturday, well then, the baby's going to sleep and night. But it hasn't happened as much recently, and it's something that they're going to have to figure out. 888-957-9570. This is from the 408 in the Comcast Business text line. Evan, would you say the Minnesota game was more about Minnesota being in shambles than the Warriors having turned some corners? They laid another egg tonight. And also, people, I can't believe you're saying this, figured out with JK and Potts. It was any time, but Steph can beat us tonight. Come on, Evan, absolutely wrong tape. I mean, he needs help. I would ask you how they're going to get him help. This is the Indiana Pacers. This wasn't the Cleveland Cavaliers who they got coming up. This was a game you got to win. I'm just saying. As far as Minnesota, yeah, the Timberwolves are obviously a team that is, I don't know if in shambles is the way to put it, but I have had concerns about the Wolves for a while because I don't think that Randall really fits with what they want to do. And as a result, Anthony Edwards is just taking too much on his own plate. But defensively, they're still a good team. I mean, the Warriors kind of almost blew that game. It ended up being closer than they thought. But offensively, that's where Minnesota is an offensively challenged team. I think it's interesting that the Warriors have played well against Minnesota. They played well against Houston this year. Offensively challenged teams. Indiana, the one thing they can do is score the basketball. They're not an offensively challenged team. And you saw it down the stretch. When they needed to get baskets, they could. But again, they knew what they were doing. I don't think the Warriors did. And that's why I think they need to keep running with this roster. I think they need to try and figure out where Schroeder's role in it is, because clearly Melton was somebody that fit. And he fit alongside Steph. And it was also at the beginning of the season when everybody was fresh. Steph wasn't dealing with knee tendonitis. Draymond wasn't dealing with his lower leg injury. But Melton clearly fit immediately, quicker than Schroeder has so far. So that's something that they need to determine whether they're going to use Schroeder at all times to start. Maybe he needs to come off the bench to be more effective in those non-Steph minutes. I thought it was funny that in the non-Steph minutes at the beginning of the second quarter, I think, it was a lot of Hield and maybe even Moses Moody, but it was almost like the ball was going through Buddy Hield instead of Schroeder was just kind of sitting there. And I thought that was the whole point of him being on the rosters when Steph's not on the floor, that he's going to have the ball. So I think there's also something offensively that they need to determine, but he's a pass defensively. As Kerr said, you heard tonight, he's a little bit streaky, and we'll see if he can bounce back. For as much as I said about Curry, odds are on Wednesday, he's probably going to have a good game. Although I don't think on Christmas he's played particularly well across his career. It might be one of his worst dates as a whole. But again, this is 2 games in the last 3 in which he has had stretches of time in which he has not made a field goal. Like that is concerning to me. And does he need more help? Yes, but I don't really know how you get it. And I don't know how you get it without giving up something that I personally don't, which is your only decent young players. Maybe I'm on an island there. But again, I don't think that this game made me want to say, yeah, let's go all in for Steph. It doesn't. It just doesn't. In fact, it makes me afraid, quite honestly. I've never seen him play this poorly in such a condensed period of time. And so if that's going to happen, I don't know, maybe he's got to take more off his plate. He's got to trust more in the teammates that he does have. I thought Wiggins was good tonight at picking up some of the offensive slack when Curry didn't have it going. Hell, Jonathan Kuminga played a really good game tonight on the offensive end. I don't think he forced much. I thought he was decent enough on the glass. I mean, he looked like those numbers that he posted tonight are numbers that are of a 3. That's one of the reasons why I think he has to play, in Kerr's eyes, at the 4 alongside whether it's Draymond or other shooting. It's because he doesn't usually rebound well enough, and he typically doesn't distribute the ball. But that wasn't the case tonight. And if he can continue to do that, I do think there's reason to believe that Curry might have a little more help. But just saying that he needs more help is stating the obvious. It's not going to get them anywhere. That's not going to appear. And if you go and trade for another second co-star or superstar, you don't just get to airdrop that player onto your team. You don't just pair him up with Steph and say, all right, here you go, guys. Let's just run him out there, and we're going to bring in a big boy. And you're also going to keep Wiggins. You're also going to keep Kuminga. You're also going to keep Schroeder. You're also going to keep players that I think can help the Warriors. And, if anything, I think they need more time to try and figure out if this thing can gel or if they need to try and, do something else. I don't necessarily believe that Schroeder is here for the long term, but if he can help them in the meantime, then they have no other choice. And that's why at the end of the night, this loss hurts. The Golden State Warriors had a prime opportunity against their first sub-500 opponent in what feels like a month to get a win, to get their first back-to-back win since November 22nd. And they couldn't do it. And they couldn't do it because defensively, they weren't able to get enough stops. I thought Curry and his 1 of 6 in the fourth quarter absolutely hurt them. And again, it's living and dying by Steph. And if he has shooting nights like he did tonight, if he's shot the way that he has in December, which is 40% from 3, 37%, 40% from the field, 36% from 3, they're going to lose a lot of those games. And he's got to play better. Draymond Green has got to play better. And if they can't, then the Warriors might have to figure out if playing 35 minutes a night is good for Steph. That's what he did tonight, and they weren't able to win the game. So they got a lot of questions to answer, but we'll be here to try and figure them out all with you. Didn't mean to end the night on such a poor note. I swear I'm not that down. I'm just trying to figure out realistically, how the Warriors are going to be able to sort of right this ship. Because this is a game that hurts. It hurts. But they got the Lakers coming up on Christmas Day. I'll have that pre and post for you on 95.7 The Game. Big thank you to Cameron Williams, as always, our Warriors Network coordinator. Big thank you to everyone that has called in tonight. Big thank you to Carter Chickering, who I believe was cutting back in studio this evening for us. Up on Kearney Street at our 95.7 studios. But that'll do it live from Chase Center here. Big thank you to everyone, again, who has listened in tonight. I appreciate you tuning into this edition of Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. And real quick, before we get out of here, I almost forgot. It's time for our Crashing the Board segment brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the area leader in collision repair. Top rebounder tonight for the Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga and Trace Jackson Davis, a pair of young guys. I don't know. Maybe they need to try and figure out if they got more talent and some of the younger players. I don't know. 8 rebounds, 4 offensive for Kuminga, 8 rebounds, and 3 offensive for Trace Jackson Davis. So that's Crashing the Boards brought to you by Chilton Auto Body. Again, we'll be back with you 48 hours from now on Christmas Day, 4:30 for a 5:30 tip. Looking forward to that one. LeBron James, Steph Curry, always an entertaining matchup. And we'll see when the King comes to town to take on the Chef. In the meantime, make sure to tune in tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., I believe, is Sam Lubman alongside Jake Hutchinson. Myself, along with Kyle Madsen, who does a lot of our 49ers postgame coverage, are going to come at you from 10 to 2. And then I believe Dan Devone and Lorenzo Neal, if I'm not mistaken, are going to be manning Willard and Dibs on the afternoon show. So a Christmas Eve lineup that we're going to try and have a lot of fun. We'll try not to be too doom and gloom tomorrow, I promise. But, again, that's all coming at you live on 95.7 The Game. You've been listening to Warriors Wrap-Up on your home for Warriors basketball. We'll talk to you next time. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody.